And as I said, Rabbi Meir Kahane, it's his yortzeit today. That means it's the anniversary of his death. Rabbi Kahane, I'm just reading this a little bit from Wikipedia. Rabbi Kahane gained recognition as an activist for Jewish causes, such as organizing Jewish self-defense groups in deteriorating neighborhoods and the struggle for the right of Soviet Jews to emigrate. He later became known in the United States and Israel for political and religious views that included proposing emergency Jewish mass immigration to Israel due to the imminent threat of a second Holocaust in the United States, advocating that Israel's democracy be replaced by a state modeled on Jewish religious law, and promoting the idea of a greater Israel in which Israel would annex the West Bank, which is Judea and Samaria, and the Gaza Strip. In order to keep Arabs, who he stated would never accept Israel as a Jewish state, from becoming a numerical majority in Israel. He proposed a plan allowing Arabs to voluntarily leave Israel and receive compensation for their property, and forcibly removing Arabs who refused. Kahane was assassinated in Manhattan, in a Manhattan hotel by an Arab gunman in November 1990, after concluding a speech warning American Jews to emigrate to Israel before it was too late. Well, I remember where I was when I heard about Rabbi Kahane being assassinated. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that. And just a word from Shifra Hoffman before we go to our guest. Shifra Hoffman wanted me to make a small announcement here saying that Shuva, which is return, the emergency Aliyah movement, calls upon Jews in America and all of the diaspora, by the way, to heed the last warning of Rabbi Meir Kahane, Zichrono Livracha, may his name be blessed, before he was murdered by a bestial Arab assassin, she writes, to leave the United States where anti-Semitism is rapidly spreading and come home to Israel before it's too late. Today marks the 21st yortzeit of this most courageous and Jewish leader of this generation who gave his life for the God of Israel, the land of Israel, and the Jewish people he dearly loved. This, again, said by Shifra Hoffman. She's the executive director of Shuva. You can go to the website at shuva.net and victimsofArabTerror.com. All right, let's just see. Do we have our guest on the line? Okay, we have joining us now David Fein. He is the compiler of the selected writings of Rabbi Meir Kahane from 1960 to 1990, and I'm holding one of those books in my hand. Actually got a couple of books here, but one of them I'm holding here. It's volume number 4, and I'd like to read something from there later on if we have time during the show as well. Do we have David Fein with us? Do we have our guest, David Fein?
Yes.
Hi there, David.
Hello.
It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You did an amazing job picking all of these articles and putting them into a 7-volume, door stopper. How do you say it? Basically, the first question I want to ask you is, you picked out these writings from 1960 to 1990. Can you tell us why people need to read these books? Why they need to go and order them and have these on their shelf?
Yes. First of all, I just like to give the information to people where to get this. Okay, if you're in Israel, you can call the following number in Jerusalem and either talk to them or leave a message in English and or Hebrew. It's 02-582-3540. Again, 02-582-3540. And if you're outside of Israel, go to Amazon.com. That's www.amazon.com. Go to books and just type in Beyond Words Kahane, and it will come up. And why buy it? Because basically, it's very, very relevant to what's going on today. And unfortunately, since the writings were written, nothing really has changed, in my opinion. And I feel that that Israel is sort of locked into a system which is, God forbid, leading to catastrophe should it continue on the same route. So I don't really think we have a choice. But so that's really it. That this is relevant. That unfortunately, nothing has changed, and so it's really not optional.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I think
that Jewish people
worse.
should be Jewish, not to assimilate when you're in the exile, to come home and make Israel not just a Hebrew-speaking Portugal, but to make it a Hebrew-speaking Jewish state. Why don't you elaborate on that?
Okay, did you just read me a quote, or?
No, I'm just remembering what he said. I'm kind of old, so I remember what he said when he would say it.
Well, I mean, I think that on the one hand, things have actually deteriorated since the rabbi's death, in the sense that he spent many, many years talking about the issue of non-Jews in the land of Israel, and at least he spoke about it. No one else really spoke about it, but since his passing, I think either it's illegal to speak about it, or you're called a racist, or you're banned, or your property is confiscated, or et cetera. But so in that sense, things have deteriorated. What you were saying before?
Well, I'm just saying the message that I always remember him talking about was, again, aliyah, aliyah, aliyah. That what are you Jews doing here in America and wherever you are in the galut, in the exile, and he would talk here about Israel, that we should be a Jewish state and not be a Hebrew-speaking Portugal.
That's right. Well, it looks like I think Israel is actually getting more, if you want to call it aliyah, from the Sudan and Somalia than it is from the rest of the world combined right now. And that's been going on for a few years, and I have a feeling that the Israeli government is greatly understating the number of illegals in the country, not to mention just the Arabs, who are growing by leaps and bounds. And the real problem in Israel is that, as I said in the introduction of the book, is that both the left wing and the right wing are dishonest. The left says, give back land, so yes, we have a problem with Arabs, and ignoring the fact that there are over 1.5 million Arab citizens of Israel, and the right wing either ignores it or says that there's not a problem. So, I greatly fear for the future. I really do. And then when you combine that with the lack of Jewish education in Israel and just the utter confusion in terms of education, very, very, very sad and scary situation.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what compels you to write this book? I mean, this is not just one book. I mean, you didn't write the book, but you still had to compile it. And these we're talking about heavy. I'm holding it in my hand right now. This is heavy books, 7 of them. Seven volumes, I guess. Is that how you say it in English? And
that's correct.
What compelled you to go to do all this work?
That's a great. That's a great question. I felt I had to do it. I felt that I had to put together this man's writings, sort of, like an encyclopedia or an anthology, including selected quotes. Otherwise, God forbid, they would be lost. And I felt that really he put what in my opinion, of course, that he expressed the Jewish idea better than anyone else in his time. And I felt that I was pretty well organized, and even though it took a while to put the collection together, I felt that I could sort of logically put everything together.
Mm-hmm. And
no, it was simply something in my heart. I felt I had to do it. I felt I had no choice.
Now, did you talk with his wife before you did this? Or do you have a relationship with her where you're saying, is this a good idea, or should we just put this up on a website, or how did you work this out?
Sort of, I think yes, I'm friendly with the family, and I think they came out with a smaller anthology around 1993, and I said maybe we can work on a bigger one. And hello?
Yeah, we're still
hello?
here.
Yeah, and it sort of kept going. Originally, we thought it might be 2 volumes, and it became 3, and then of course we had to put in indexes in the back. We had indexes according to the Tanakh, the Talmud, the commentaries, the commentators. We have indexes by subject. It sort of grew, and and now we're also working on a version for an ebook version, which hopefully should be out soon.
So from all of the books that you wrote, what was one of the, articles that most impressed you, that really touched you from putting together these 7 books?
Honestly, it's funny. I don't think anyone's gone over this more than I have, and I think that they're all classic. I really do. And the amazing thing about them is that they haven't aged. They're literally like they were written yesterday. And because of the bulk and the size of this, it's 7 volumes. I think that the version, the ebook version, is going to be a very, very good idea, because it's just sort of hard to handle 7 volumes.
Right.
But
maybe I'll read something.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read something?
To read what?
One of the things that you have published, that you posted here in the book.
Yeah, you
there was
can
something
read
you read.
Sure.
I just want to give people a taste of what the book is. If they get this book, what they can expect to hear, because it's so refreshing to hear somebody who's proud and someone who's strong and not wishy-washy, not politically correct, and knows, puts his finger right in the pulse. Listen to this, folks. He writes here in 1981. He writes here, "You do not speak to the PLO. You do not make agreements with the PLO, directly or indirectly. You destroy the PLO. You search them out relentlessly and without mercy, and you eliminate them. You do not fight the PLO with one hand tied behind your back, because your one eye is continually looking to see what Washington's reaction will be. You do not bomb the PLO, knowing that for each one killed, there are 100 others who hid in their bunkers and escaped. You do not bomb bridges, knowing that they will be replaced by pontoons and other means. There is only one way to remove a hostile force that hides across our border and lobs missiles and death on your people with impunity, knowing that they have a sanctuary. You remove the sanctuary. You capture the sanctuary and destroy the terrorists in it. You hold on to the sanctuary and do not give it up. For as you return the land, so do the terrorists return to it." Comment.
Amen. Yeah, no. It's Judaism and it's common sense and it's Zionism. I was reading in the paper that in Russia, former Soviet Union, where Alexander Solzhenitsyn's books used to be banned, that they came out with a student's edition of, I guess, his writings. And I hope that sometime in the near future that the State of Israel would do that for Rabbi Meir Kahane as well. I don't know what to say. I think people simply need to read it and to learn.
Well, what do you think that they'll take away mostly from this book? When you say that they need to read it and learn, what does that mean exactly?
This book is this whole collection is really tremendously powerful. It's very, very inspiring. It gives you Jewish knowledge. It gives you Jewish strength, intellectually, psychologically. I think it's really, really something. if I can say so myself.
Let me just go through a little bit of the table of contents here. This is from Volume 4. One is called Tragedy in Lebanon, that he writes about. Another one here, The Fire of His Jealousy, meaning God's jealousy. Probably that the Jews are running after the world opinion and not after, the Torah. Here's another one. How wondrous are thy works, love in Israel, United Nations style. The Hungarian communists, Jewish baptized returned. And there's quotes, and there's one called The Shame, which I also bookmarked here. If we have time, we can take a look at what he wrote there. And it's just filled. I mean, there's page after page of table of contents here, by the way. Page after page after page of all the different articles he wrote. Jews and Gentiles, The Heart of the Matter, The Canaanite Slave, Who Are You? Kahane's escape from the police. It's action-packed, and again, it's so refreshing to read because he doesn't, play politically correct. He says exactly what needs to be done. He diagnoses what the situation is. He gives the cure, and it's straight out there for you.
Yeah. I think The Shame is about the mosques on the Temple Mount. That's what that article is about.
I was just doing a show the other day how the Arabs call Jerusalem Al-Quds, and yet they deny that there was ever a temple there or anything holy. And yet, if you look at the word Al-Quds, Quds, the K and the D and the S is the same letters, the consonants of Kadosh, which is holy. It's a holy temple. This is where the holy temple was. So it's just so ironic that they would deny that there's a holy temple, and yet they themselves named Jerusalem Al-Quds, which is, the holy place there. So it's very, very interesting.
But on the other hand, who cares what the Arabs say? I mean, what matters is what the truth is. I mean, I don't care what the Arabs
they're telling the truth. That's the whole thing.
What's that?
I say they're telling the truth. That's the whole thing.
What's that? I mean, it's linguistically interesting, perhaps, but I don't care what they call it. It's not theirs. But the real point of this, as I said, is that it is 100% relevant for today for Jewish survival. And the real question is the state of Israel going to go quietly into the night, being politically correct? I don't know what the answer is. The right wing in Israel is so riddled with Western concepts of equality, of the Jew and the non-Jew in the land of Israel, of looking at what the Western media is saying. They're really very little worse than, I think, the left. And the sheer numbers of Arab citizens of Israel, not to mention all the illegals that are coming in, probably by many of them per day across the Sinai. I don't know how they're avoiding importing terrorists also.
We have to stop and take a break. David Fein and the book again, Rabbi Meir Kahane's Beyond Words. We'll be right back.
Yes, darlings, this is Grandma JJ here in the USA. I just called to wish you blessed holidays and a happy new year. And we're standing with you. That we serve the God, the only God of Israel. Don't give up any more land. God gave you that land. Take care of it and do what you need to do. All the blessings of the Holy One of Israel upon you. The only true God. From Grandma JJ in Gallatin, Tennessee. Love you all.
You're listening to IsraelNationalRadio.com.
Israel National Radio presents News, Views, and Call-Ins with Tamar Yonah.
All right, so we're talking tonight about Rabbi Meir Kahane, Zichrono Livracha. He should have a blessed memory. May his name be remembered as a blessing. And he was a blessing. A lot of people say that he was a modern-day prophet, and a lot of people say that he was a racist and a terrible man, and they wanted to kick him out of the Knesset, and they did, by the way. They were afraid of him because he told the truth to the people, and a lot of people started to follow him. He started to get a very big Israeli following after he was in the Knesset, and it scared the Knesset members. And as the story goes, the Knesset members were so scared. I think that there was some type of seker, stats taken, and they thought that he could be the third largest party in Israel if he was able to run again for that next Knesset election. But they didn't let that take place at all. They stopped him. I invite you to call into the show, 1-800-270-4288. That's the number to call in. It's a free phone call for all of you who are listening in the United States, Canada, and Israel. And this is a talk show, and the talk show will be over in another about 20 minutes. So you need to call now, 1-800-270-4288. Let me read you something else from this book, and I really do encourage you to go and purchase this book. This is something that you will be proud to have on your shelf in your home, something that when people come over, they're going to pick it up, like they do in my house, by the way. Oh, what's this? And they pick it up and they start reading, and it's such refreshing reading, again, because it's not diplomatic and politically correct. He puts his finger on the pulse. He says what the disease is. He diagnoses it, and he gives the cure. Let me read you a little bit more of what, this is from Beyond Words, Volume 4. Again, you can get it on Amazon.com. He's talking about the tragedy in Lebanon, too, the blessing of isolation. Because Israel so much wants to be pals with the rest of the world. We so much want to be in the boys club. We so much want to be in the clique. We don't want to be outside. We just want to be like everybody else. But that's what our problem is, because God did not bring us back to Israel after 2,000 years to be like everybody else. He brought us back here because we have a mission. And that mission is to be a light unto the nations. Not to copy the nations, but to be a light, to be a leader, to have them follow our example. Like, if you remember, in Haiti, when they had that terrible earthquake, and the Israelis went over there, and before even America was able to put their pants on, Israel had an operating tent hospital that was amazing over there. And they couldn't understand. Nobody could. Everyone, the world was scratching their heads. How did this tiny little country, Israel, come all the way to Haiti and be able to put up a camp tent hospital and be able to do all these operations and emergency surgeries and take care of these people when America wasn't even having all of their troops there yet? This was a leading example. How Israel is humanistic, how we try to help everybody, even our enemies, even places like Turkey who demand apologies from us when they come and invade our territorial waters and try to kill our soldiers, and they demand an apology when they had an earthquake. Israel says, let us help. Let's get past the politics and just be humanistic, because we're all brothers and sisters, and let's help. This is being a light into the nations as well. But let's get to Rabbi Kahane's book here. But he talks about isolation, something that we're so afraid of. He writes here, this is on page 8 of volume 4. He writes here, for the Jew, the worst of curses is to be isolated, without allies, alone in a hostile world. He flees from that as from the blackest of plagues. He sees in that tragedy and destruction, and so he does all, even violation of principles, in order to hold fast to an ally. As some desperate unmarried single on a Saturday night, rushing out to find some kind of companionship, any kind, willing to endure any humiliation, but above all, not to be alone. How sad that the Jew cannot comprehend that it is precisely his isolation from the Gentiles, exactly his being cut off from their alliances and support, that is the greatest of all blessings. How sad that he cannot understand that the Jew may be isolated from man, but he is never alone. What a sad commentary on the corruption and decline of Judaism in all its aspects, that the Jew does not realize that it is precisely when he is cut off from the nations, isolated and alone from the Gentiles, that the redemption will come. Weep at the Jew fleeing in panic and terror from the very blessing that will bring him the Messiah. This is just some of what you can read in Rabbi Kahane's writings. Again, the book put together and compiled, a big work by David Fein. Kol hakavod to him, all the respect and honor to him. It's called Beyond Words, Selected Writings, 1960 to 1990 of Rabbi Meir Kahane. Let me continue a little bit more here with what he writes. The fear of man is indeed a stumbling block to Israel, to the Jewish people, to him, bringing nearer and guaranteeing his defeat. For the fear of man that causes the Jew to leave off his total trust in the Almighty is a humiliating slap in the divine face. The great biblical commentator, David Kimchi, the Radak, stated it simply, quote, "For it is a mighty rebellion on the part of a servant against his master to hang his hopes on another master." Isaiah 31, it is the height of rebellion and humiliation, and the Almighty will not allow it. He repays the fearful Jew measure for measure. We saw it so clearly in the humiliating Begin collapse before Washington that led him to agree to a ceasefire with the PLO. The PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the very essence of Chilul Hashem, the very essence of a desecration of God's name, because of its arrogant refusal to recognize the sovereignty of the people of the Lord over his land. They shell and murder Jews. The clear response is to strike and cut their heads off, to enter Lebanon and destroy the PLO, root and branch, to declare the land liberated, part of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, as shown by the biblical boundaries. Such an act is Kiddush Hashem, the sanctification of God's name. Such an act is military logic. Such an act saves present and future lives. Such an act shows the Gentile that this is a people of God that trembles before no mortal human. You need to read these words. You need to buy these books. And you need to have this on your bookshelf. And when you hear the dribble-drabble of our leaders, American or Israeli, who have sold out or who are weak or who are just ignorant of our purpose in this world, who are ignorant of how to bring justice to this world, who are ignorant in how to make this world a better place because of their fear. You need to be able to pick up this book and get some truth back in your life and some direction and some guidance, some emet, truth. 1-800-270-4288. Call in and speak with me. Did you ever meet Rabbi Kahane? Any of you old enough to have gone to demonstrations or were involved in the JDL, the Jewish Defense League? Rabbi Kahane was one of the first Jews, if not the first Jew, to reignite Jewish pride. You know, for so many centuries in the diaspora, we lived in ghettos and we cowered before the Cossacks and before the soldiers of the Tsar and the Spaniards and all the exiles that we lived under. And then we came to America and we started to be free. And Rabbi Kahane said, no more will we cower, when they were going into Jewish neighborhoods and picking on the Jews, picking on the elderly and on the poor Jews. He said, enough. And he founded the JDL, the Jewish Defense League. And they started walking around the streets with baseball bats to patrol the streets and protect the Jews in those neighborhoods in New York. Did any of you know Rabbi Kahane? I was fortunate enough to know Rabbi Kahane. I was fortunate enough to go to jail with Rabbi Kahane. I was fortunate enough to go to demonstrations with Rabbi Kahane and put into the newspapers issues that needed to be read by people. Rabbi Kahane was a very strong man. His wife, a very strong woman, God bless her. His children, very strong people. To have a father that would go out and really feel for the Jewish people, for the nation, and even go and sit in jail for months upon months upon months, being away from his family. You know, I want to say here, I have to say this because, you know, when I was reading the book of Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah in English, there's a part in there, I don't remember the exact chapter. I can go find it at another time. I don't want to leave the microphone right now, but there's a chapter in there where he's telling his helper, Baruch, I think his name was Baruch. He said to him, you know, basically, God has spoken to me, and write these words down that I'm telling you, that God said, and then go and read them to the people. Go read them to the Jewish people, because I'm detained. And I stopped when I was reading that. I said, what? I mean, what could be more important for Jeremiah to do than to go out and tell the Jewish people what God has told him, what he's prophesied, right? I mean, what was he? Did he have to go and put up a new tent? Did he have to go get he's got a manicure appointment he can't miss? I mean, what was more important than Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, going to talk to the Jewish people to give them a message that God is saying? What do you mean that I'm detained, so you go and do it? So looking in to what our sages say, they explain why he was detained. He was detained because he was in jail. The king's men, the king and the people didn't like his message. They didn't want to hear Jeremiah's message. It was unpopular. It wasn't a message of, we're going to have peace, just give up land and all will be good. Like we hear the president of Israel, Shimon Peres, and the peaceniks saying, give up, and we'll have peace. And those are nice messages. Oh, yes, we're going to have peace. They really want peace. Oh, we have peace partners. Yes, we do. He was a Kahane, or a Kahane was a Jeremiah. He was telling the people the truth, but it wasn't popular. So the king had him thrown in jail. And he was in jail. And we always think, we just assume that our prophets were these holy people, that when they would get up to speak in front of the crowds, everyone would be in awe and listen to his messages and say, wow, look at that prophet. But it's not true. It's just like today. Many people didn't want to hear his message. And so they threw him in jail. They threw him in the dungeon. And that's why he couldn't go and speak to the people. The same thing today. They take Kahane, who is giving a message saying, we can't live here with an Arab entity that hates us, does not want to acknowledge our sovereignty. We can't live in a place where this is a Jewish state and they have to sing a song. They're supposed to be under democracy, equal citizens, yet the national anthem is that it's a Jewish land and 2,000 years we've been waiting for the Jews to come home. How can an Arab sing that? This is what Rabbi Kahane said. But a lot of people in Israel who are peaceniks or naive didn't want to hear his message. They didn't like his message. Shh, you can't say that. This is a democracy. You can't say that the Arabs shouldn't live here. You can't do this. And who are you to tell us how we have to live, that we have to be Jewish here? We want to be like every other country. We're part of the UN now. We're part of the big boys club. Quit making problems. Quit making waves. They didn't like Rabbi Kahane's message, so they threw him out of the Knesset. They passed a law that that he's a racist and that his party cannot run because it was estimated to be possibly the third largest party in Israel if he ran again. And that was too threatening to them. So they silenced him. They threw him out. And then he was murdered. The world has tried to silence Rabbi Kahane, but you can bring his voice back. You can bring his voice back by going out and purchasing his book and having it on your shelf and reading from it every now and then when you need that chizuk, when you need that strength, when you need the clarity that the powers that be today try to mix us up and fill us full of catchphrases and sound bites of peace and just giving more and havlaga, restraint, be tolerant, restraint, be tolerant, restraint, be tolerant, restraint, be blah, 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 blah. We have leaders today who, for whatever reason, are not acting as our prophets say they should act, to act with justice. You know, the reason that the world is in the position that it's in today, the reason that Iran is building nuclear weapons and it's thumbing its nose at the world, the reason that the terrorists are still alive and bringing in more missiles and more guns and more ammunition is because, my friends, simply because there is a lack of justice in this world. If there was enough justice in this world, these people who have become monsters because they like to slice people's heads off because they're infidels, they like to throw missiles at kindergartens and at cafes and murder men, women, and children and babies and murder you in the Tube in the UK and murder you in the Twin Towers in America and laugh and clap and dance in the streets as you're jumping out of the Twin Towers to your deaths because that's a better death than burning alive? Because we leave these monsters alone and we feed them because American and Israeli tax money and European tax money is going to prop these terrorists up to keep them alive, to keep the peace process going. Because of this lack of justice, we are in this situation today. They see that the West is weak. Smell that? Weakness. Weakness. And the Eastern Hemisphere people smell that weakness in the West, and it emboldens them. It emboldens them. But Kahane had the clarity. And that's why today, even though it's 21 years after his death, you will still see graffiti on walls in Israel saying, Kahane Tzadak. Kahane was right. Kahane was right. Kahane is right. And if you want to know what is right, read what he wrote. His message can still be alive today, but you are going to be the one to revive it. You are going to be the one that's going to reinvigorate his words that we need so much today to move the fog away, to be able to have some clarity, because there is so much mishmash today in the world, so many lack of borders and definitions, and instead being rammed down our throats. Be tolerant, be tolerant, be tolerant to evil. They'll be just like us. Oh, be tolerant to evil. They just want to go to Kmart or Walmart and shop like us and have 2 cars in the garage. That's not true, my friends. They despise the West. They despise your materialism. They despise your culture, and they are going to conquer you because they've already infested themselves in you. In Europe is lost. It's Eurabia now. And the United States is being lost with a Muslim president, Barack Hussein Obama, one who wants to appease these terrorist regimes, one who wants to make more injustice in the world, one who wants to feed and prop up these things, these entities, and call it peace. It is an injustice. And Rabbi Kahane says it. He says it a lot better than I do, too, by the way. If you want real clarity, if you want real truth, if you want to hear Rabbi Kahane come alive again, go out and purchase and order his book. Again, it's called Rabbi Meir Kahane, Beyond Words. Beyond Words, put together by David Fein, 7 volumes, and you can order it at Amazon.com. And I urge you to do so, by the way, because we are lacking Rabbi Kahane. We are lacking Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah the prophet. We are lacking people with clarity. But you can bring it back. It's called Beyond Words by David Fein, who compiled all of these articles by Rabbi Meir Kahane. May he rest in peace.